what we do, dude, is like usually we just start this with giving you the floor to say what you guys are, like in your own words, how you've come to be. Sort of, how did you get to this point where you've come from America? You were born in America, but you're saying you're Greek Italian. To the point where you're the CEO of a pharmaceutical company in Portugal. And like,
Okay.
how did you get into like the cannabis space?
Yeah, you lob the questions at me, and I'll knock it out of the park.
Okay, so how did you get your start? So, did you start off? And I saw that you've been involved with about, is it 12 to 14 different startups in terms of going from where to go in the cannabis space. So, where did you start off? Did you start off in America? Did you start off in Canada?
Yeah, no, I did start off in America, and do you have do you want me to share a screen? I could show you some stuff, or do you want to just?
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, go for it. That'd be great because we're recording, so that's all good.
Okay, cool. So here, I started off in the United States, mostly as an investor, and also with a doctors group. So my partners were pain clinic doctors and had multiple pain clinics. And so the idea back in early 2008, when the or late 2008, when the medical cannabis started in California and then moved westwards, so Las Vegas, you see a lot of these projects on there that are mostly Las Vegas orientated. And so these are all the projects that myself and my brother built with our own hands or designed or invested in. And some of these, many of these we sold, or other people are running these over time. But then there's two main operating ones that are still operating in the United States. And they do about a combined revenue of close to 350 million, I would say, in total combined sales, the remaining units. And so what started off, let's say, as a medicine for mostly pain relief, but that could be such a general category. It could be arthritis for older people, and a substitute for oxycodone and other more harmful drugs, then became a different animal as the cannabis industry in the United States changed. And so what was oral drops and soft gel caps became vaporizers and gummies over time. And so there was just a metamorphosis state by state. And then about a few years ago, I said, okay, let's go bring these products over to Europe.
Because the culture there, especially in both North American countries, is so much more developed than what it is here. The idea here is still in its infancy. Again, I think Germany, what they're doing at the moment, has brought it along quite a little bit quicker. You've obviously got the market in the Netherlands, but that's quite murky. Like the idea that that's very a straightforward system isn't right.
So where did you start in Europe then?
Yeah, did you begin in Portugal? Or did you start off in Spain, move into Portugal, or how did you end up in Portugal?
No, we started here in Portugal. Do you see that on your screen?
Yeah. Oh wow.
Okay.
This is your facility.
Yeah, so this is the manufacturing facility, Somai's main hub. This is what we're most known for, because we made well over 100 different extract products, stabilized medical products. And so if you look at our portfolio, we didn't make one 10 for 10. We made 18 10 for 10s and every other formulation you can imagine, 25 for 1s, 2.5 for 25s. And so not just the formulation, but we made different versions with different terpene mixes, and including faster acting ones, which are going to be released very shortly. 1 nano emulsion we just completed just 2 weeks ago. That'll be launched in March. So we made multiple products for different indications and different, let's say, different reasons people use cannabis. There's no one size fits all. We didn't make one inhalation device. We made, I believe, 14 to date. Sprays are in the market. There's only one of those. That's like the Sativex soft gel caps. I made 24 different versions, from 1 mg to 2.5 to 5 to 10, because it's not like a drop where you can change your titration. Oral gums, we have 6 made, with 3 more being made this year. Rosins, resins, different concentrates, and different products. And the idea was, I couldn't settle on any one specific product, like the pharma industry, to say, okay, take this and it's going to work for everything. And so we had to make multiple products for market naive as well as market mature. And so now, if you look at what Somai is today, it's not just the manufacturing, but it's also, we bought an indoor grow recently, and we're 134 professionals worldwide at this point, most of them here in Portugal. And so I could take you on a tour of the factory if you want, but I'll let you go on with your questions.
Oh no, like this is great to see, because again, I think like the exposure to something like this and showing someone exactly what this is,
and the actual like pharmaceutical method, rather than, you imagine people growing it in their basement or whatever. Like, it's not that anymore. Yeah,
and it's not grow tents. It's not. It's facilities. It's also I think there's a stigma in terms of where cannabis lands in society, especially somewhere like England. You have a very clean-cut decision between who people are, when they're for and when they're against it. That's why they haven't passed any legislation here to actually give recreational a go. Like again, like the medical side of it though too is quite hidden. When we started our journey to do this, there was no guidance. There was no there was no one willing to put their neck out to say like, hey, you should try this. And again, like we've had to move away from the cannabis medicine because of the interaction with immunotherapy that they have.
Yeah.
So Beth has a special immunotherapy that she gets from a private clinic in Germany. And we were told that there was a negative reaction between immunotherapy and cannabis. Now, there's only one proven study that shows that. But again, like what I think what cannabis did for us in terms of stress relief, just at the bare minimum, is something that everybody should be looking into here. But if there's anything you want to show of like the facility, we're very much keen to look at it. But it's again like it's nice to see that there is facilities within. Or again, you're in the EU and in the UK, unfortunately, for that connection. But I think like there's such a huge place for people like Somai to actually fill that education role and fill that role of actually showing people that this isn't just like a counterculture thing anymore. This is a full-blown medicine that has so many different avenues it can help with.
Could I ask? So in terms of the huge variety you produce, are the doctors who prescribe it, are they well read in what each one does? So for example, when we were getting it medicinally, I was actually asked how much I wanted and just kind of prescribed it. I had no idea what was best for me. So like, the doctors you work with, are they trained in it specifically?
Yeah, is the endocannabinoid system, is that well taught of, or have you recruited doctors that are versed in all of this sort of stuff? Like, because again, like Beth said, when we were prescribed it here in the UK, I did a qualification in it, but I'm nowhere near a doctor. But he took my advice on dosage. It wasn't anything. There was nothing really he contributed other than the access point. So it's like, the doctors at Somai, are they coming from countries and stuff like that to that embrace like that type of learning?
So let me try to break that down, because you got a lot at me, and I'll try to dissect it in a few different. No worries. So imagine, so you have doctors in the UK, doctors in Germany, doctors in Australia. You got clinics in all those countries too. And then, I mean, we're in 10 countries. So every level, doctors are all at different levels. And the ones that have decided to go into cannabis believe in it, right? Exactly how much each doctor knows is an independent thing. You only have a limited amount of capacity, in your experience to understand things. You could study things, right? But then, one of the biggest challenges with cannabis is it is very individualized. And so, even from my point of view, like I couldn't even, why did I spend so much money to make so many products? Because I couldn't even decide which demographic and which indication and which titration guide meant the most. And so even just a titration guide as an example, even if you were able to find, I want to do a 10 for 10 today, a 25 for 1, or I want to smoke some flower today, whatever that is, your body is completely different than my body. And so there's different sexes will change the usage, your body weight, how much you've eaten. There's so many issues with getting it right. And so one of the things, even with if in any place I've gone, even for normal doctors, there's some of them that are there for the healing and will go to the next level to find out how it works with you. And when you're going for at least a specialized indication, you need somebody who's going to work with you and help you. If not, you are reconciled to your own devices, right? To some degree, finding that balance in life, with cannabis does fall on you, because how much time can you spend with the doctor? 10 minutes?
Yeah.
3 minutes? Whatever that time is, he's right on to the next one, treating another indication. And although he's put some notes in the computer, in general, you're living with yourself every day. He's not. And so, at some point, you need to guide the doctors, to get to the point where you want to be. And that's even prolific. Like the United States is a great example. Mm-hmm. These are medical markets also. Nobody really understands that 2/3 of the markets are recreational. And all that means is a different way of buying. It means you go in and you could buy it without need of a doctor. But then 1/3 of the market, almost 10 billion of sales, comes from the medical market. And the doctors give a prescription, and there's certain limitations to how you can use it. But for the most part, you're again walking into a store, a dispensary, and there's educated people there, that are helping you maybe choose a product based on their knowledge. But then the interaction becomes choosing that product or that new product that just came out based on your indication and your experience. So you can go into the bud tender and you can say, look, I have this, and this indica worked, and this one worked. And it's more of an interactive experience with somebody who's probably more than likely met somebody similar to you or not, or at least has tried that product or sampled that product. And so the interaction's a little bit different, but it doesn't mean that it can't be the same in Europe. And I think Germany, as you pointed out earlier, is a great case of study of that. Now that they made cannabis accessible, that any doctor can prescribe for whatever reason, almost.
Yeah, we've found the Germans to be the best to work with in terms of the medical sector. We work very closely with a genomics expert named Saskia Biscuit, and like in Germany, they just have a different way, I think, of thought when it comes to treating anything, especially in the medical sector. But I think as well, like what they need to understand as well in Europe is that there's a huge black market for it. If you take away the black market and make it accessible, even like you said, it being labeled medical just means it's a different process of getting it. But most people would have a reason to want to try cannabis. If you live in England, it's a very stressful place to live. Stress is very much a key thing that you could use for cannabis. It's been known for years that it's done that. The idea that anxiety or anything that actually comes to your living surroundings, cannabis can help with. It's just that, like you say, that access point. We've found we're trying to work with a company called Relief that I think you guys have a connection with. You guys have a partnership with. They have like the best sensibility, I think, in the UK in terms of how it should be run or like how the access point should work. It doesn't. Yeah, they're doing a really great job. And you make a great point in terms of that. It's just the way someone buys cannabis. It doesn't change like anything, regardless if you got it over a counter or from a dispensary, like or a cafe or whatever.
So have you recently moved to Ireland? Is that correct? To start work in Ireland?
Well, our headquarters are in Ireland, and we did a deal with Georgella in Ireland, who deals with specialty medicines. It's a very small market in comparison to the UK, but the dedication to the patients has to be there. So we want to make sure that the patients have access to all of our products. And as an example, in the UK, there you mentioned one of the groups that we work with. What we try to do is work with everybody. We want everybody to have access. We want all the doctors to be able to access on their formularies. We don't own our own clinic, so we're not a manufacturer selling through our own clinic and saying, okay, you have to try our product because we own the clinic. However that's done magically with the Chinese wall. At the end of the day, we want people to experience the product that's good for them. You didn't like this? We make it economical. Our price should be in every market. We try to make it the lowest price, or at least there are some really low products that are just completely different than they have a reason for being lower price, let's say. But we're the lowest price, in most markets, and that's so people can try different things and find the one that works for them. We don't believe that medicine should be unattainable at an insane price. And because we're not insured, this becomes a very costly experience per month if you have to come out of pocket, X amount of dollars. So the whole point was to make everybody accessible, and equally, and then everybody can try. So
yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do with our platform.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear that.
That is such a refreshing take, because again, we've had the support of Beth's family through her treatment over the last 5 years, and that's given us access, but also it's made us learn that there is a gap here where there isn't the right access for everybody. And that's what we're trying to do with our platform, the Bloomsbury Health Hub, that we're giving, like you say, work with everyone. So whether it's the smaller guys, the larger guys, whichever it takes, just to get it out in front of people, just so they know what's available. It's there's a big difference between sitting around in the dark wondering what you're going to do next, and then actually having an idea of what's available.
Yeah,
it's very much like, it's a great sentiment. It's a great way of being.
Well, at the end of the day, we're servicing and we're trying to help people, and so it doesn't help them very much if the price is unattainable. Like, this is great, but you can't have it. I'm not sure how to bridge that gap. Mentally, my mind can't bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's what we've found. I think both me and Beth, you would call us problem solvers, because again, there's so many times where we've had that exact thing happen, where someone will say to you, oh, for instance, again, like if we bring it back to the medical cannabis stuff, we had a nurse essentially that would talk to me when the doctor wasn't in the room about what would be good. And like cannabis was one of the main things she was preaching, or like, well, not preaching, but like talking to me about. The doctor came back into the room and she stopped halfway through a sentence and just started like going on like as if we weren't talking about it. And then the doctor left again to take Beth's weight. And then she was like, yeah, try these things. I was like, where do I get this? And then she's like, "Oh, there's two options. You can get it off the street, or back 5 years ago, there wasn't exactly a great access point for medical cannabis. So you could either get your RSO oil off the street, or you're getting, or you're in that unique circumstance where you could pay for medical cannabis from Harley Street. But now,
I feel like when we first started, so we did actually get it from a non-medical source, but because we had no access to it, but this was 5 years ago when it wasn't really a thing in England, if you like. I think now they've got like the Canna cards came out for a period, and I've got like a medical approval for it now. But I think the industry is growing so quickly. Like, how do you find that changes your aims and goals? It obviously making things easier.
I mean, for sure, all markets, right? Even California, any market, we all had the experience of Rick Simpson oil, flour from our local sellers and stuff like that, right? And as the markets develop, even if like the UK is the example here, imagine there's countries where you can't get any cannabis except for that. So you don't even have the choice. At least there's over 500 SKUs now or maybe more now in the UK market. So, they've developed better and better products over time. I remember in the early days, Rick Simpson oil was what we would make, right? And so it almost was like making, it was almost like you were making it on your stovetop, and you were using a fatty acid chain to dissolve out the cannabis products, and then you were centrifuging it quickly off to try to separate it. And then suddenly that was, RSO is a branded product, but let's just call it a deep crude, right? We were making those. And then as time and somebody came along and said, "Hey, we got this CO2 machine that's making perfumes." We're like, and they give you all these stats, and you're like, that sounds like it'll work. Give me one of those. And, then you got to figure out how to use that machinery. But then over time, technology, the money that got put into technology, you weren't taking a perfume, a machine designed for perfume. You were taking a machine designed by cannabis users to extract cannabis and get the optimal performance out of it. So it became started at one point, became a war of technology for extracts in specific, or in flower, a breeding mecca of multiple flowers, bred to a point when I can't even find the original genetics anymore. Like, we still have some 1987 seeds, and I'm like holding on to them like they're gold, because I'm afraid you'll never find the genetic again one day. And how do you get the 1987 out? I'm not even sure. So, the point is, I was in Thailand trying to get some of the original genetics, from those original few Thai genetics back in the day. But the point is, over time, technology has a way, for the extracts at least, of mimicking exactly what we're trying to do and getting the higher performance and improving that performance over time. I'm not saying that everybody's got it right, but everybody's at least trying with their own craft, whether you're trying to make that really fine rosin, and I can show you some how these looks, or you like the resins, or you like the Rick Simpson oil crudes, or you like extract with fruity taste. Who knows? But that's for something for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so, I was trying to talk. I was with a very deep, let's call it a legacy user, and he was like, "Mike, all I do is rosins." I go, "That's great. Rosins are fantastic. Which strains do you like? Here's a few really great strains." And I said, "But there are other people out there. there's, mommies and daddies that, need just something to cut, that stressful work life or that stressful home life that they need to do. And they need a lighter product, something less, because their usage is different than yours. They got to take care of that baby today, and they're older. Or my 80-year-old parents, we can't even find a gummy bear under 10 mgs in the United States, and they don't make oral drops really much anymore. So they have to cut a gummy bear into 10 pieces because they need a 1 mg. It's like, it's such an imprecise dosaging for an 80-year-old. So you got to keep in mind, there's so many walks of life, and this now technology and breeding is trying to capture more of that universe and bring more demographics together.
Would you agree that the THC to CBD level has a big impact on how it affects an individual patient? So would you say like you give high CBD to more, I don't know, like, needing to relax rather than like high THC, which could be seen as more medical?
I mean, I prefer balanced myself. If you, but I like something where the CB1, CB2 receptors, are kind of muting themselves out just a little bit, and the THC and CBD are fighting for space on those receptors. But like a pain doctor, he's going to say, just give me the max THC, get rid of the CBD. Mm-hmm. So it's all preference, right?
Yeah.
So interestingly, I had my tumor analyzed. I kept a sample of it, and it had a CBD2 receptor pathway, which is why I started taking medicinal cannabis. And I think that's maybe a fact people don't quite realize. It's not. I mean, I completely agree. It helps with anxiety and stress, but it physically interacted with my tumor, and I think that's amazing. And I hate that it's seen as a casual drug rather than a medicine.
Yeah, that was quite a pretty crazy thing to figure out as a, again, advocate for it, but also a user of it for many years. The fact that there was proof in front of me of this analytic that had been done on someone that I knew, well, like, it was my wife, like, but like,
yeah,
but that was wild, because again, as well, learning about how it can break the brain barrier in terms of the entourage effect is crazy. Like that should be taught to people in terms of the carrying entourage factor of cannabis with other medicines. I don't think the initial introduction of these new medicines that Beth has done would have been as successful without having cannabis involved. And that, I think, that needs to be more widespread. But again, you guys at Somai are trying to work on educating people too. I've seen, we listened to one of your podcasts you did with guys from Australia. Like you guys seem to be spreading out, or like getting the word out there really efficiently. Is my question is the working with 10 different countries, how are you staying on top of all the different legislation? Because that seems to change quite quickly. Do you guys just have a really solid lawyer team, or is it the fact that you guys are trying to work ahead or like anticipate what a government does before moving too far forward with your projects? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, we try to stay neutral to regulations in independent countries and try to mold to their country format. And most of what I do, if you ever get on I have a friends and family Instagram, I'm flying all over the world talking to the doctors and pharmacists and educate them because it's very limited how we can advertise or educate, because we're the actual manufacturer. I can't really tell people use this because this is good for this in my current role. I could do it as Mike Sassano talking about his portfolio to a doctors, but I always have to be careful of the public that I'm speaking to, which is really unfortunate because I believe many of us have a wealth of knowledge to educate. And like you were even mentioning about the tumor, and there's physical help, right, with the product, with the different, let's say, formulations, or the individualized cannabinoids, minor and majors. And then there's actually the hormonal effect of a more relaxed and happy person will generate a healing in the body that comes from the cannabis. And how do you measure that scientifically?
I read once that a doctor said that the interaction of cannabis with modern day medicine is trying to measure happiness, because what it's doing is keeping the body relaxed. If you keep the body relaxed, the system works more harmoniously. So how do you measure happiness? And I always thought that was quite a nice sentiment, or a nice way of thinking about it.
Where does the body repair when it goes to sleep at night, right? The better your sleep, the more your body repairs, the more it's going to go after that tumor. It's going to be stronger at night going after that, right? And saying, no, I don't want this in my body. Your relaxation, your all of these things. It's hard for scientists to equate that. We just, I think it's being published today or tomorrow. I'm not saying our research it was the end all be all on what would be called an entourage effect. But we did, I believe it's released today or tomorrow, was a scientific paper that we commissioned with the Lusofna University and was worked on for the last 2 years, where we try to make some sort of baseline agreements that there is an effect, despite many doctors denying it, or maybe they don't see it in a different way. And it has to do with not just the majors, but the minors and the terpene formulations. It's the whole ball of wax, the flavonoids, the phytocannabinoids, all of it's all together. And so we tried to make some sort of logic to it, so we can tell the people that say, all right, I'm a pain doctor, it's all about the THC. We tried to say, look, we have multiple terpenes. We publish our minor cannabinoids. There's a reason for that. We're not telling you this is exactly what it's useful for, but we're telling you that we make these so that each batch is the same, so we could publish this data so you can find something in there for your patient or yourself if you know your body better, which is generally the case. And you could find, does this work for me given my past experiences? And yes, I've been reading about the effect of the additional CBN or CBC or whatever. And look, here's a Somai extract that shows that has a nice percentage of this that may work better for me or may work at all for me. And so this is opening up this clarity and educating people that's the holy grail. And I wish I didn't have to fly all around the world to do it, and I could just sit on a podcast with you guys and blast it out. And this is an attempt to create it.
We'll have you back on for sure. Again, you're right, because so with our platform, we wanted to have like an electric or just like an online resource of sort of a cannabis base, just to give someone. So like our whole platforms, our idea is in terms of having cancer and pain management patients have access to private healthcare and private clinics, like products from Somai, like, Relief. There's another company called Synthesis that we're trying to work with. Like all these different clinics, CGAT in Germany. But like the one thing we were allowed to give access to that, but the idea of having an online document that showed people a breakdown of how you can consume cannabis and what even just different strains is considered not okay in England. I forget what it comes under, but you can be shut down quite quickly.
What's the company where they've got a TV advert, and it always makes me laugh. Yeah. And in it, they're like, the patient's like, oh, will I get like weird dreams? And they're like, no. And then they're like, oh, like this, and it's like a cannabis company, but they're not allowed to say what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's well done, but like I just thought it was hilarious that that has to be so constricted when they can like advertise gambling companies for like sponsoring TV shows and like different alcohol, which is like really bad for you.
Yeah.
Like
we had like we've worked on a couple of different medical cannabis projects, and one of them was based around a grow habitat that me and Beth had developed. Now we had a side Instagram profile for that, and Beth put up was doing like facts about cannabis and trying to get people into it. And she put up this Hollyweed sign. It's like a Hollywood sign that says Hollyweed. And it went gangbusters. She ended up getting like 20,000 likes. But then we got shut down by Instagram because it was advertising cannabis. And all it was it was actually talking about like a piece of legislation in California that had gone forward and that was making it easier for people to access and stuff. And it was just so weird that we'd been active for like months, and then suddenly this one off the cuff sort of almost like a joke post got our social shut down, and it was all just because it was almost like too direct advice.
Yeah,
it was weird.
Yeah, well, you need to be careful over there in the UK what you post, but in general, in many degrees, I suppose. But we've been getting shut down from social media. You have to have a tagline in most of the U.S. not for sale and things like that. But the X platform is welcoming of cannabis educations. Reddit is very welcoming. So it's quite sad that people get shut down for trying to give some basic educational. I do agree that, hey, look, let's not sell it online. That's definitely going to raise red flags. But let's educate online and get that word out there as much as we can. And so I don't think they should be so picky, but that's the way life goes. Until these rules change, like Germany really changed the face of Europe right now. And although I'm consistently wrong, and I would never bet on my predictions, for 17 years I've been wrong, I am very confident that the DEA will Schedule 3 which will change the face of medical cannabis and open that access up. So it was always bizarre to me in Spain that you could go to a social club, and get cannabis, but if you had cancer, as an example, you couldn't get a medical product in Spain until maybe in a few months they're going to set those rules. But finally, it's happened. But okay, you could get your relief, but you couldn't end up at a medical product. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But at least people should have access as they wish.
Yeah, it's even like again, I'm from New Zealand, and we only have a black market in terms of recreational. They're trying to change that at the moment because they see the financial gain of what you can do for a country, especially a small country. But our
huge, right?
Our perception in terms of like how the cannabis industry worked early doors was, the Netherlands lets everybody do whatever they want, and then when you look closer into it, it's actually much more convoluted and much more complicated than Spain. In Spain, I lived in Spain for a while. You could grow 2 plants and go and be part of a cannabis club, but yet like you couldn't smoke it in public. That was really confusing. And then you sort of now what the next step of what Germany's doing, where they're giving it an access point, they're giving everybody, again, they're putting the age restrictions on it, they're going to tax it. Again, I'm excited to see what Germany does with that, because it's already a beautiful country. And the fact that they'll have this resource, it's going to make it even better.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, with you guys in Portugal as well, they have a different legislation again. They have a legalization on, is it all drugs? Or is it, there's like a class of, like they have a much more lenient ruling on drugs in Portugal. Do you guys find, is that why you guys set up there, because it was much more open-minded in Portugal? Is that the reason for being there?
Yeah, so recently I just, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I just finished an article on Portugal that was asked of me by our team. And, Portugal everything's decriminalized here.
That's it. Yeah.
But on top of that, they have a massive and very deep program to rehabilitate. It's not that it's just decriminal. Like if you go to Germany, you could go to the train stations in Frankfurt and people are shooting up heroin right there and they're swimming in the streets. It looks degraded. It's quite sad, And in that situation, there's no social net that's been developed to bring them up. Now, I've gone to the places here. I saw somebody touching somebody's hand for 1 hour, trying to just bring them back and into a more real space. And so, there's a real rehabilitative effort on top of that decriminalization. It's not just one step; it's the right step of a full, a more well-rounded thing. But the cannabis, their medical program, and it's not just about cannabis; it's about any drug in the Portuguese system. They're extremely conservative about how they give out drugs, and how they prescribe drugs. And so, although there are a few products available on the market, they're very high priced, and it's not. It would be better for people. Unfortunately, I have to say that to get their products from the illicit market because the selection and the pricing is not beneficial to the patient. And so there is a growing word to open that up more, allow for clinics and doctors to be better prescribers, because there are people that need medical advice, and it's not just about picking up products off the street. It's more about that therapy that's necessary. And there is some guidance, I believe, at least in the beginning stages, for any cannabis naive patient. There is some guidance that's needed. I always tried to tell people what's the big difference between a recreational and a medically driven decision. And so one is, if you weren't given any advice whatsoever on using it, one thing that we're noticing amongst the U.S. markets is people keep driving their dosage up and up and up. And I've been able to maintain my dosaging levels, because I've purposely tried to keep it. And when it starts to get too far up there, I have to do something to clean my body to try to bring it back down. Because if not, it'll just keep going up and up and up. And to some extent, some people, you can't avoid that. But I think there's a large population that could have avoided this, and could have a more regular regime if they were just given a little bit of advice. So I don't know if that answered the question exactly, but I think that's down to the point.
No, that's right. Like, it's because, again, you touched on the rehabilitation side of it. They're looking at opening up the New Zealand market in terms of the cannabis side to try remedy that. We have a very bad meth problem where we actually have our own type of meth. It's called P. And it's a horrible drug that is ruining people. And they have just done a study in New Zealand that shows that meth users use less meth by like 40% if they use cannabis instead. So
That's correct.
So that for a country like New Zealand is going to be a game changer, because just some of they should be taking some looks at what Portugal are doing then, because if that's how they're handling it, again, like, you do want to have a better access point. I didn't realize that it was quite as difficult, and because it had been decriminalized, I assumed too much that Portugal was essentially like a
free for all.
Yeah, or not a free for all, but yeah, sort of, but like sort of would have had like a similar setup to Spain where it was like clubs, but
no.
I didn't know that.
Spain is very liberalized in that social club network. The UK, you can order anything online and have it delivered to your doorstep, like Amazon. New Zealand, where our products are in registration, they require EU GMP certifications, which of course we need. And so we're bringing the price below the two other products that are in the market. There's a very limited market right now, but there are little clinics that are starting up. And so we're bringing our price down like we do in every market, And one of the groups said, well, why are you doing that? That's so unfair to us. You don't need to do that. I said, because this is how our mantra started. So we will be a fairly priced product, whether our competition likes it or not. So it's about the patient at the end of the day. So we are supporting your local market there in New Zealand. I've been out to New Zealand twice this last year.
Nice.
Yeah, I still have not gone on that Lord of the Rings tour. I wanted to do go see all the places where they were, but I come in and do business and then I leave. So I want to see all those beautiful mountain ranges and streams and all that stuff out there.
Well, yeah, but yeah,
I'll be out there. Send me some photos, please. But I'm coming out there also. I have to do Bangkok. I have to deal with Thailand right now because there's a lot of interesting growers coming out of there. But I think I'm going to I always hit Australia, and maybe I'll be passing by New Zealand is a very high likelihood.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because again, I think New Zealand's an interesting idea in terms of the cannabis space, because everyone's ready for it, but except for our government. So if you speak to any true New Zealander, if you took the temperature on what they thought of cannabis, like their husband, their wife, their brother, their son, their daughter, one of them smokes it. And there's such a high acceptance rate. Like it's quite frustrating because it's
not really looked at as a bad thing.
And even like we were talking about home grows and stuff like that before, there are people I know personally that are superiorly talented growers that haven't been given an opportunity to do something in a legal space. And I think that's a massive waste of talent. Maybe it's a bit harsh, but no, I think the opportunity of that in a place like New Zealand, where you have so many people that are good with their hands and are willing to put in the mahi and like work, is like, I think once we get our legislation right, or wherever we land on what we're going to do with recreational and the medical side of it, but I think you'll get some advances in what cannabis can do by opening it up to New Zealand, because the Māori culture's used it for years. Like it was available to us. I think it'll be interesting to see what places like Somai can do down there. Because also,
it's happening. Look, every year a new block is taking out of the argument against. And like this beginning of this year, it started with in January, the release of a 252-page HHS report from the FDA. And so the advocates had to sue for it in order to get the document. Once released, it basically, I've summarized it in a few articles, it basically said cannabis is safer than the alternatives currently in the market. And they cite oxycodones, benzos for sleep, and all of these things. But it went on to say that it's good for at least 15 indications, not just multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, cancer, stage 3, but it went on to even cite Crohn's disease. So, and many others. So it's like the FDA, after studying 2 decades, 6 million patients, 30,000 prescribing physicians, finally came to the conclusion that we all know. We all know this.
Yeah.
But they wrote it. And so it's surprising to me when I will go to other countries and I say, I talk to a regulator, I say, haven't you read this? Because, our country is not the United States. And I said, do you have a different morphological experience in your body? Are your bodies different? Because please tell me the difference of your heart and your liver and your kidney functions so I could better understand why this isn't relevant data that makes sense from policy standpoint. Yeah. And they kind of scratch their head, I'm like, your body's the same as my body. We have the same problems. We all have the same things. This is it will, in order for you to have that much data, you would have to have your whole population for 2 decades, study cannabis. Well, America made it easy for you, and the Germans agreed with it and opened up access. So I think this is sweeping the globe, though. France is coming online, Spain's coming online. I did a piece. I didn't even realize there were so many legal cases in the world. I believe there was almost 45 or 50 countries where there's some legislation to legally consume cannabis medically, mostly, and a few more rare is the recreational adult use. But there was almost 50 countries, if my memory serves me right, that had some sort of things, including Indonesia.
Oh, really? Because there's a really famous.
Talk about a surprise alert.
Yeah, there's a really famous woman from Australia that tried to, as the story goes, tried to smuggle cannabis into Indonesia in a boogie board bag. And she got life imprisonment. And it was why, like, I know there's more cases of it. Her name was Chappelle Corby. But, like, that Indonesia do not take kindly to drugs. They are,
I find it, so this is like an very open question. But do you believe that part of its power is because it's from nature rather than like a human produced drug?
Like the interaction of like actually creating cannabis. Do you believe like the natural side of that is more beneficial than
like man-made, like paracetamol and things like that? Like it's from nature. Like mushrooms are from nature. And like they provide good effects for your body. So not supposedly, but in theory. Do you think that
that's a
their
benefit
root from nature
cannabis
is like a positive sign?
I think the answer is yes, of course. But when you start to isolate an element, right? You isolate the THC. Most pharmaceutical products are isolated active ingredients. So THC pure, CBD pure, and that's fine, I suppose, for specific indications where they're targeting specific things. But I think in general, when you have the full, all the minors, all the terps, all the value, that whole entire value is more than the singular element, unless there's something specific you're targeting. And so the one size fits all pharmaceutical model, who's probably the reason why we still don't have, more traction politically. I don't think it's because the people don't want it. I think pharmaceuticals really keeping a kibosh on us to keep their pain relief drugs moving and their oncology suites moving. Although I did see Pfizer a year ago bought a cannabis company to add to their oncology suite, which I thought was quite interesting. It was a San Diego company, but that's not really the science, is it? Right? It's the herbal science that people need to pay attention to. And although I do agree for some people, singular elements are needed, they're targeting things that are specialty. Real sharp pain relief or a THC direct hit right into your system is probably something that's needed for that person. But in general, the herbal sense of it all is probably the more widely accepted therapeutic method for a variety of reasons that we've touched on, not just physical, but mental.
Yeah. Have you had, well, we don't want to keep you too long. One thing I wanted to ask you about was earlier you talked about you had a couple of Las Vegas projects that you'd worked on that you'd launched. Have you worked with any of the indigenous or like the I guess you call them American Indian establishments in Nevada? So I watched a really fascinating thing the other day about some of the tribes in Nevada are using the land that they have to be able to develop cannabis. And I was just wondering if you had any involvement in any of that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we all work together. Cannabis is a small community, and we all work together. So my brain cells skipping today, but they were, I think WAMU was their name. But we also work with North Carolina tribes, Florida tribes, recently a Canadian tribe. We're helping to get an EU GMP certification in Canada. So yeah, we try to work with everybody. It was funny. They said, Mike, are you working with any indigenous people there in Europe? I go, I'm in Europe. Europeans are the indigenous people. And they like laugh. They're like, yeah, that makes sense.
It's the source place of the whites, you know, like it's like that's I don't know, like
they are the indigenous tribe here.
Oh
yeah, it was a funny moment. You want me to show you inside the facility, and I can show you how we make products?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Walk us through that.
Let me take you on a spin through the facility. Maybe this will help with some of the understanding of what we do. This is the manufacturing facility on the inside, and this is just typical pharma. What we make is cannabis, and the know-how obviously comes from the American market. How we make it, though, is pharmaceutical, because that's the applicable law to making a product that can span the globe and go from country to country. And so, there's multiple different ways to look at different oils. And so, it all depends on how you decide your extraction is going to go, whether it's rosins or resins or clear extracts. All of it is based, all of it has a place in the markets. And so when you go inside, it's just typical pharmaceutical. Laminar airflow, we do a terpene extraction first before we do anything else. A lot of what you'll see in the market is we talk about terpenes and minor cannabinoids. We all know what THC and CBD is. A 10 for 10 will be a 10 for 10. A 25 for 1 will be a 25 for 1. There is no way to change that exact element. THC, CBD, CBD. But minors and terpenes create another performance aspect of the product. So terpenes are very sensitive. Pull them out first. This is what they look like. They look like a nice murky white, and we can actually manipulate those and work with them. Every single product we make is with full bud flower. There is no trim. There's no degraded flower. There is no mixing of multiple different strain lines. It's one single strain line every time, and it's always the full bud flower. The same flower you're smoking from the pharmacy is the same flower that we are extracting in full bud form. This looks kind of like a spaceship. So what used to be you were cooking it up on a stove 15 years ago now looks like this. And so the point of this machinery, though, is try to get as much efficiency and as much out of that full bud flower as you can. And to that effect, we're at a 92% efficiency rate here. And so if you look inside, again, just full bud flower. There is no, in the monograph, if you want to go to some of the more strict countries, you have to prove that you are making your product from the full flower. And this is important. This is an interesting piece of machinery. And so this could do many things. But the primary use that we did it for is we were told in the beginning of the days, make not just your majors, but your minors consistent from batch to batch. And because we have 2.5+ years of data, that's why we publish our minor cannabinoids. And if there should be some deviation, and our terpenes, by the way, because we make them, we test them. We make them, we test them. That's GMP. But this machinery has another piece of benefit. So on one side, I'm going to just talk now because it'll get a little bit loud. But on one side, you can take out things that are not beneficial to you. So we have a research report that's going to come out any day now, and we pull out fats, lipids, chlorophylls, and extra plant material, not the elements, all the major elements that go into an entourage effect. None of it's been removed. All we're doing is removing some of the non-essential.
Wow.
That's incredible.
See, when I studied this stuff, we only saw this in diagram. We never actually saw it in function. This is amazing.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of people trying to debate this online. And remember earlier on, I told you this is about technology. If RSO is a great product, but if I can manipulate that RSO with more technology, and I can prove to you, the consumer, the doctor, that all that's missing when I take it from this to this is just fats, lipids, plant material, and I'm not even talking about good plant material. I'm just talking about debris and chlorophyll. If you can find anywhere where you think that's part of the entourage, I'll put it back in. And one doctor raised his hand recently and said, I think I want more chlorophyll in my product. And we all kind of laughed and made him feel, comfortable about it. We said, look, you're not a tree, but if you want chlorophyll, tell me the percentage you want and we'll make you mix. But it's very simple math. All you do is start with a full bud flower, just pull out the non-essentials. There's a lot of things you don't need, and you will end up with a great product that you could build on with terpenes and different formulations. We have multiple formulating rooms. This is the brand new nano emulsion, where we're between 140 and 96 nanometers, depending on the viscosity of the things. This was just made 4 weeks ago. And so this is an actual process going on. Some people who have pain, they cannot wait 1 hour for the extract to get into their system. Paracetamol plus, as an example, you got a headache, you want relief soon. And I believe this is going to be a really great product for people that need relief quicker. I think people who need to sleep may want to keep a longer duration product, but people who are using it for pain relief, especially during the day, will need active. And then there's just lots of equipment. It gets a little boring. It's not as sexy as the flowers. This is an oral gum reactor and soft gel reactor. The reason why we have never-ending inventories is because we produce lots of bottles. And this is also why we can keep our price down. Machinery also avoids a lot of problems. Even packaging equipment, it's all automated. And so we can make 10,000 bottles in a run and say, okay, send 500 to the UK, 1,000 to Australia, send 2,000 over to Germany, 200 over to New Zealand. And this machinery will stop and will change the packaging to another place. Soft gel caps, there's so many people that cannot take oral drops, like my 80-year-old parents. Their fingers just don't work on the tubes and they need their precise dosing. So soft gel caps is definitely an area that we've excelled in. And we use blister packaging, which is pharmaceutical. This is why we'll be in some countries very shortly that are very restrictive. And we also have downriver packaging. And this is how a soft gel.
Oh, wow.
That looks incredible.
Yeah.
You never think of that side of things, do you? When you're buying a product and then you see it being made, it's quite incredible.
Well, even like when I was studying, you wouldn't get this access. Like everything was done like a diagram that was made on like Microsoft Paint. Like this is like actual functioning, how it works, what's happening. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in Australia, we were working on a palliative care, and the older people did not have the ability to swallow a gel cap easily. So I made one that tasted nice for them, that would dissolve in their mouth. So you can have a lot of fun with making products to suit different demographics, because not everybody can consume the way you can consume. And we have to be flexible for all those demographics. People have trouble swallowing. People have trouble getting a syringe and pulling out the right dosage. Some people need vaporizers, and this is automatic vapor. Some people will prefer these oral gums, although created out of a recreational market. guess what? My 80-year-old parents love them. And so they just have trouble finding low dosages. And so Neurofum is a pharmaceutical product that has a good taste. There's a bronchial medicine that you suck on, that's a lozenge, that has a great taste because it consumes in a better way. Well, if you can keep that cannabis in your mouth longer, you can get better absorption. So there's actually physical reasons to do it. We have our own lab. We do over 4,500 tests a month. Our own microbiology. This is how we can make more products and how we can make sure our quality levels. We don't need outside labs. We have a certified GMP laboratory. And so we just make all different kinds of products for all different feelings, whether it's we try to divide them into our essentials line, our mints lines. These are cannabis-derived terpenes, the origins. These are naturally derived terpenes for the senses, fast-acting, both emulsion-based and nano-emulsions, live resins and rosins and concentrates. That's a different group that wants those. So we try to stay non-denominational. Recently, we just bought an indoor facility 30 minutes from our original facility. And these are non-irradiated, these most non-irradiated indoor flowers with consistency. And we make these out of tissue culture. So we have even branding with different groups from the US and stuff like that. Although Somai is a medical brand, we do understand there's other demographics out there. So we try to address the issue of what's the difference between somebody who is recreational and medical? Is it the performance of the product? No, it's packaging, And one person is trying to achieve something for their body, but that person who's recreational, guess what? They're trying to solve something also. They just appeal to a different packaging. And so Somai has to be a medical brand because there's so many countries of new countries that are just getting into cannabis. And we need this brand to focus on the patients, that are at a different level. But then on the other side, change some packaging, same technology, a different approach.
Yeah, the recreational side, the way I explain it to people is similar to the craft beer space, where everyone has their own sort of flavor that they like. For me, I'm a big fan of Girl Scout cookie. So but the packaging of it in terms of if you got that flower from a medical side and or from the in a I don't know, California or one of the states or Canada, you're so right. It's just the packaging. It's you're trying to solve the same problem. You're trying to work on the same thing, but yeah, the medical side, you obviously have all the breakdown on it. And then on the recreational side and the Canadas and the Californias, it is really more like a craft brew space where everyone's got funky packaging, cool artwork, things like that. But they're all trying to solve the same problem.
That's it. And on the medical, the thing that's most differentiated for us is that we come with doctor's guides, PK guides, titration guides, different indication guides. We educate them. Like recently, one of the better selling products in Germany, which I kept jumping up and down about, is our 2.5 mg THC with 25 CBD, because there's new patients arriving and you can't give them a 10 for 10. It's too much for them. Yeah. You got to start them off at a lower titration guide. Mm-hmm. And so teaching them, if not, they're gonna say, you know what, it didn't work. I don't know what they're talking about. I've had this eating disorder. I've had this pain, and I don't like this dizzy feeling that I got. And they go away, and then we lose them because they could have been helped. And so the medical side is a lot of documentation, a lot of studies, and a lot of things. Whereas the recreational side, here's your packaging, go at it.
Yeah. Enjoy.
We have a whole. It's really an investment, a labor, let's say investment labor of education on the medical side, and we hope it trickles over to the other side. But we don't want to prejudice against anyone.
Yeah,
that's nice to hear.
It is like Yeah, we were just not recently, but about 18 months ago, we were in the States. We were in Louisiana, and I was actually just wanted to ask you real quick what you thought about some of these fake cannabises that are coming out. What I found wild was people thought that what they were selling in, because we were in New Orleans, what they were selling there was cannabis over the counter, and it's not. It's a stuff called Delta 5. So that it's weird. Like, so what is it? So tetrahydrocannabinol Delta, is it Delta 9?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
So
taking CBD and they're converting it into Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, Delta O is so good. Yeah. I was even in CannaFest in Czech, and we went to a store and they had a flower and they said it was Delta 9. But what it was a hemp flower with sprayed on Delta 9, and it tasted like plasticky to me. But I had to try it. I had to see what it was. But I think like there's the real thing. And because access is so limited, people are creating these things that are less beneficial and maybe even potentially unstudied and harmful. I'm not saying I'm going to make a conclusion on it, like HHC. Something doesn't sit right, but okay, to each his own. But I was at Mary Jane, and I saw people passing out with these synthetic mushrooms and synthetic HHC. Well, if you prohibit something, you're forcing people and scientists to create things that are less healthy for them. And so the regulations are forcing this situation where maybe this doesn't need to be in the market. And if people had the proper choice, they say, thank you, I'll take the real thing. I don't need NutraSweet. I like the powder sugar.
Yeah, because we had a real problem in New Zealand with fake cannabis, and I thought it would be.
It's not fake cannabis, though. I hate to. I want to destroy the word of cannabis from it. Whatever it is, that fake synthetic stuff.
Yeah. Well, sorry. So it's. I'll get this right. So it's synthetic smoke is what they called it in New Zealand. It's nothing to do with cannabis. So nothing to do with cannabis, but like the idea of it, like some of the, I know of friends and stuff like that had things happen to them where they were smoking this stuff so much that because it was easy to get, you could get it in like a corner store in New Zealand. Just a shop. Anyone could sell it, and people were smoking it so heavily that this sounds a bit gross, but the urine turned to milk, so they were peeing white.
That's so rough.
And this is happening to many people. People instead of, and this is what was kind of wild, because it got partnered with the great cannabis plant or like branded under that same thing. People started to have seizures because of the synthetic smoke stuff. And they're like, well, isn't cannabis meant to stop seizures? You're like, it's not the same thing. It's a complete, like what you've done is, like you just said, forced a group of people into creating something that they're allowed to have, and it's actually super harmful and just not good for you.
Isn't that a perfect example of limiting our ability to educate is allowing a market that's unrestricted to educate people the wrong way and tell them that this is cannabis when it simply is not. And they've manipulated molecules to create something that is dangerous.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm surprised every time. But you know what? I don't blame the politicians and the regulators. I think they should wake up, and see the reality of what's going on out there. I do believe they're trying to do their best, but I believe there's some of them out there that are getting paid by the pharma groups, and they're just squashing us and allowing these kind of manipulations to occur. And that's quite disturbing. I think they're going to learn their lesson, one of these days.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Well, I think that's again, this has been awesome,
Yeah.
Michael, man. This has probably been my favorite one we've done so far. This has been great. And we'll again, like, we'd love to have you back on down the track. And again, like, this has been very, very enlightening.
Yeah.
And we hope to work with Somai, with the Bloomsbury Group, in terms of educating people around cannabis. So like it'd be exciting to work with you guys going forward, or whatever projects you guys want to do. But this has been wicked doing this.
Is there anything you want to close with?
Is there anything
to promote your company?
Is there anything you want to say to like close it off? Or
I'm very happy that you all took the interest, and it's so important to spread the word out there. What you're doing is educating people in a way, because I can't do it directly from my seat, and for them to understand out there that there's choices for them to make. I'm not going to say mine is the only choice, but find the right one for you, whatever it is. That's the whole approach to this industry, is find the right one that works for you, whether it's mine or somebody else's. I'm here to support that decision that makes you feel better. And please come visit us. You guys, you're welcome to come visit us. Come see this in person. The pictures are nice, but seeing it in person's a whole nother experience. And we always welcome doctors, pharmacists, advocates, and people to come and learn about how this is all done. So keep doing this, keep preaching the word, and keep pushing it out there. There's countries out there that don't have any access right now. And it starts internally and it moves externally. And we're all going to get there because everybody's mind is waking up, and Europe for sure is moving now that Germany tore the Band-Aid off it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.